first thing we need to do is reorganize the city commission. I guess we're not, Nate's not gonna be here.
He said he'd be here as soon as 7:30 p.m.
Okay, so no, Nate's not gonna be here. So, first thing we'll do is I will accept nominations for mayor and vice mayor, starting with mayor. So any nominations for mayor?
Nominate Dr. Childs.
I have a nomination for me, for Dr. Child. Do I have any other nominations for mayor? No other nominations for mayor, so I would accept a motion to, appoint Dr. Childs as the mayor. I do know who I am, I just don't usually speak about myself, so. So I would accept a motion to that effect.
Mr. Mayor, I move we appoint Dr. Matthew Childs as Mayor of St. Mary's.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
I second that.
I have a motion and a second, all those in favor vote aye.
Aye.
Aye, I'll actually vote for that. None are opposed.
Conflict of interest.
I don't know, so if it is, then no. Why not? We don't get enough nays around here. Okay, so I will now accept nominations for vice mayor. Do I have any nominations for vice mayor?
I would like to nominate Mr. Camp for vice mayor.
I have a nomination for Mr. Awerkamp as vice mayor. Any other nominations for vice mayor? No other nominations for vice mayor. I would accept a motion to appoint Mr. Awerkamp as the vice mayor of the commission.
I move to appoint Mr. Camp as vice mayor of St. Mary's.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor vote aye. Aye. And there are none opposed. So Mr. Awerkamp is appointed vice mayor. Thank you. Got it. You're my coach. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. The next item on the agenda, well, hold on a second. Let's, we need to go to
Okay, bills.
the appropriation orders first. And the one thing I wanted to ask about Murray's, I'm sure I should
The
know.
70,700.
Yeah, the
So there's a $105,000 bill for that device down there at the sewer plant,
sewer plant.
and this is just the material cost. The labor will, the CIPIO wants to delay it until the first of next year, the installation, in order to get that HVAC system corrected first. So,
They're moving on that piece, but
well, no, we don't have that, but he doesn't wanna install this in that cold environment and have it running without the proper temperature. We're still waiting for that, $7,700 set of plans and stuff, so, so that's what that is.
Anything else? So, I would entertain a motion to approve appropriation ordinance number 1285 as presented.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve appropriation ordinance number 1285 as presented.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
I second the motion.
I have a motion, a second, all those in favor vote aye.
Aye.
There are none opposed, so that's approved. And the minutes from last meeting. I don't know if you guys have an opinion on it. I thought they were spectacular. Good, Brandon. So those minutes are approved. And do we have any other items for the agenda?
Add resolution 0825, thanking Nathan Hall for his time. You know, this last meeting,
Yeah.
Oh, he is?
well, he told me he probably won't, he'll be moving out of town before the next meeting. So he hadn't given a date, but he won't be at the next meeting, I thought now's the time.
0825.
Yep.
Is that it?
Aye.
Go ahead.
So a couple of things to add. Just want to just bring up the topic for discussion, no specifics. One item is the long-term plan discussion.
Okay, we'll add that. So Nathan will be, the 0825 will be Echo E, and then at
newsletter.
Quarterly newsletter. G Golf.
And that'll be it for now, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Good, okay.
This is a matter of like procedure. If I would like to ask city employees what we can do about certain resources that we have, is that something that I need to add to the agenda now? Or like how does that work?
Yeah, if you wanna have.
At the end, we have, reports and discussion.
Yeah.
If you want action taken, definitely add it to the agenda. If you wanna have it just for discussion, you can do it to the agenda or just wait to the end of the meeting as we talk about our department reports and that sort of stuff.
So I guess just to get your opinion on it, I would like to ask potentially the city attorney to do something for us. Is that something that we would need to do a motion on?
I would add it to the agenda and then we'll see where it goes. So, you wanna do that now?
Yeah, discussion on what the city attorney can do for us, add that to the agenda.
Okay.
It's quite broad, what can you do?
Well, I mean, I don't know.
That's, we'll find out. It's good. Maybe it isn't broad, not much. Okay, good. That's item 8, hotel. So the first item on the, I already did the first item on the agenda. Next item is Recreation Advisory Board. We just had a work session, I'm just gonna summarize this for the public venue. We had a work session with recommendations for St. Mary's City Parks, presented by the Rec Advisory Board, as we asked them to do in our last work session. So thank you for that product. And a second sort of follow-on discussion of parks from the Chamber of Commerce. So the advisory board presented us with 3, what they call recommendations. One, really the most actionable one, which had the most detail in it, with some prioritized, so, and they ranked different possibilities as height, use, and expense, and then broke down potential things that we could look at the Riverside parks in particular and the Flats Park. The second 2 recommendations had to do with less feasible options. They characterized as possible, but not cost effective, essentially, both the golf course land options and rec center and indoor pool. The follow-on discussion might be about, well, how might we fund that, which is of course a very important question, but until we decide what we wanna do, I'm not sure we need to, except maybe thinking about possibilities like grants, there's no action to be taken there, so. I don't know if you wanted to make any follow-on comments on that from the work session? Go ahead, Francis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So appreciate the work of the Parks and Rec Board, of getting some of the priorities, some of the options and the spaces for the city commission to consider. And I think, seeing the grid, if you will, of the cost versus use of, benefit, if you will, of each idea. I think it's something we need to consider and then keep on the agenda for future meetings and see if we can kind of break down a little bit more each particular park space. It seems like the focus is Riverside and the Flats, and kind of start to fine tune some of the ideas for those spaces. Right now, if you're kind of a little bit broad, which is always the first step, but if we can start fine tuning them a little bit more and kind of, it'll be a little bit of back and forth with the rec board, and hopefully come up with a little bit of a finalized list of some of these ideas. And if it's something we can agree upon to the point of putting out an RFP or an RFQ, so a request for qualifications, or request for proposals, to an engineering company that can come in and help us take a look at the list, take a look at the spaces, and create can actually fit logistically into those spaces. What are some realistic cost estimates for those ideas? And then we can start having a better vision of where we're going and what the cost will be, and we can start talking about the budget portion of it. So I think, from my perspective, next steps is kind of take those individual spaces, Riverside and Flats, take the input that we heard tonight, add those items under each space, and see what additional items can also be considered. And then you'll have that discussion amongst the commission, and take that back to the rec board, see what they think, and then hopefully finalize that list, and then consider an RFQ as the next step. Hopefully that can keep moving. I think if we just keep it on the agenda, it will keep moving.
So just so I understand procedurally, what you're suggesting is that we will discuss this at our next meeting, like the specific steps that you just outlined? Or are you suggesting that the Parks and Rec committee fine tune their drawings?
So, I think it is a back and forth
Okay.
between the commission and the Parks and Rec board. They have a certain perspective, they've got certain input. Been working with Parks for quite some time, working with the budget for many years. So and we also understand the process for projects. It's not the normal process for most people's lives, most people's businesses. Politics operates a little bit slower and requires a very steady discussion to keep moving these ideas forward and keep seeing what's possible. And so I think at the next meeting, we're gonna have a couple of weeks to review some of these ideas, review the different spaces, and come back and say, do we like all those ideas? Are there additional ideas that we think should be under consideration? Add to the list, take away from the list, whatever the case may be. And then, if the commission has an opinion on these various spaces, send it back to the rec board, see if they have any reasons why we shouldn't include that in the list if we set out to an engineer. But ultimately, I think we need to refine the list of ideas that we think are important for each space before we ask an engineer to start designing the space. And that's gonna take a lot of back and forth. We can't just dump it on the Parks and Rec board. If we're a massive city, you dump the whole thing on them. But a city our size, there's a lot of back and forth. There's a lot of, go out on site to see the projects. We get rather involved in them. Because it's just the way it works best, I think, for a city size. So that's the main thing, just, we have to also have an opinion, we have to also start crafting some of the ideas, and then just go back and forth with Parks and Rec board until we are comfortable with what we're gonna send to the engineering.
I appreciate that. It's more of an educational question. I want to understand how it works, and I just wanted to confirm that the ball's in our court to think about it and then come back with thoughts next meeting.
Oh, for sure, for sure.
Yeah. So yeah, that's interesting. Anything else for tonight? So just for my own part, I need to look at each one of these things and really, what occurs to me just as a quick response right away is, it seems to me completely possible that that the layout, step number one might be, I like the layout concept, but you don't have to do every single spot. You just sort of plan it well, that the area is available, and that's part of the prioritization. So even if I like the idea, it's okay, fine, we don't do that right now.
Right.
I think that's another part of the discussion. But I'll just say, I really appreciate what you guys did for this work session. It was very helpful to move it forward a little bit. The next item on the agenda is the 2026 employee health insurance. We discussed at length last time. I wanted to open this. So, Maurice sent us something.
Francis had made a request,
Yeah.
and I sent you what he had asked for from the consultant.
So do you want to talk about that, Francis, or I could just sort of summarize it? Go ahead.
maybe, Mr. Mayor, if we can, I'm happy to discuss that, but,
Yeah.
maybe kind of a first question, is to ask, I know the city staff had a meeting and discussed the change in the new plan. I guess we could pause for a moment, just ask for feedback, how that meeting went, what some of the comments were, and then after that, I'm happy to explain what some of the data I requested.
Any feedback?
Any questions?
No, there really wasn't any changes. We get the same benefits. The only change is another ID card we'll have to carry. There's skepticism, but I think it's okay. I think it's a good plan.
And no one seemed bothered by that?
Pardon?
Someone else is-
Okay, Lisa, sorry.
You want me to come up there if I
Yeah,
stand back
please,
here?
that would be, forgot to lay down the procedure.
Sorry.
For reminding me, Bob.
So, I have been through multiple different problems with insurance because of having a prosthetic one leg. Multiple insurances, nobody wants to cover anything. Long story short, that's why I know a little bit about insurances, okay, and what they do and don't cover. My problem with this one, with having a TPM added on, if I go, say something catastrophic happens, okay, we never plan on that, but stuff happens. And one of my prosthetics breaks, and we're on this TPM, and I have city insurance, and I go to get one prosthetic leg, that cost of my prosthetic is enough to capsize our TPM, because it's not built up yet. There's not enough in the fund to cover what's coming back out for bills. One of my legs costs anywhere between $250,000 and $1 million, depending on where I get made at and how that works. With that being said, I get why people do TPMs because I know they're cheaper, but to me, you know, if the insurance is a benefit to the city employees and then it ends up costing way more coming out of our paycheck still, even if it would possibly increase, I don't see what the benefit is. Personally, obviously, I haven't sat down and stared at all the numbers. I talked to Francis very briefly about this, but I don't want anybody getting stuck in the same position that I have personally been in, to where I have multiple insurance companies and nobody's covering anything. Like, that worries me for our employees, for our guys. You know, everybody, I can tell you saw the increase, what their premium on this is gonna go up. Nobody was happy. It's not just me that was a little frustrated with it. There was multiple people who were not happy with how this is gonna work. We are very appreciative of the raises that we get, absolutely. We're not doubting that one bit, but when I go and say, hey guys, you know, we're gonna give you this raise, but by the way, it's coming back plus more with your health insurance, it's hard to tell them that. That's kind of a hard pill to swallow. And I know the cost of everything in life is going up, and then on top of that, be like, hey, some of your insurance bill's not, you know, we don't know how this is gonna work out, or if your stuff's gonna be covered, or if there's multiple catastrophic events, what that could lead to. I think when we did the city meeting, I believe, and don't quote me on this, because I cannot remember exactly, I slept since then. He said if 3 people had catastrophic events within the first month is what it would take to capsize a TPM. Well, that's cool when you don't think anything's gonna happen to anybody, but the fact is, this is real life and stuff happens. It's like I was explaining to Francis the other day, we had 4 officers shot in Osage County. You know, things happen. And I worry about that from that aspect. And then I know that at one point, I believe Potawatomi County tried a TPM, it didn't work well. And they spent about another 6 months to a year trying to recover from that. So I just worry about it from that aspect, and I would ask that, you know, some of that is kind of looked into by the council. I don't want anybody being stuck where I'm at.
Question, when you say TPM, do you mean third-party manager, like a third-party administrator?
Like
Do you
the
mean someone
brokers.
else? Okay.
And I don't think, like, a lot of guys know exactly what questions to ask, like when we were in that meeting, we can put everybody in a meeting. But not everybody has been through like insurance issues and things like that, where you're literally fighting insurance companies. And that becomes a really big headache and a really big problem sometimes.
I guess I don't understand, precisely how this works then, because, my understanding from our discussion last week is that you had precisely the same coverage. So I don't, it's too bad he's not here, so that I can, maybe you guys understand this stuff better than I do, but that was one thing I was particularly wanted to know, is we're not giving up coverage, correct?
And it's not a giving up of coverage,
Okay.
but in order for a TPM, my understanding is, and I could be off, in order for it to function properly, you have to have a pool of low users, okay? And then is that not right, Francis?
Go ahead.
I think it's right. Sorry, Lisa,
Yeah.
this isn't what I do every day, but I've spent a lot of time on this over the last couple of weeks. So we spoke after last meeting. I think that's a different type of, of insurance system, than what this particular model is.
Okay.
It is a type of insurance that, more of a captive type insurance, more for larger businesses with, their work comp and liability and things along those lines. And that's where the business has a certain, couple of pots or pools of money, and that's where a couple cases can kind of make it a little bit more difficult. The way I understand this particular policy is it's very similar to our existing policy. It's really that the city is taking a little bit more of the initial risk from the $1,500 to $5,000 amount per year. And then after 5,000, the insurance company kicks in. And so that's the proposed plan, or the plan that we approved. Whereas our current plan, the employee pays the first $1,500 for a single pin. And then they also have kind of a 20 to 30% co-insurance, up to the employee being out of pocket at about $5,000. So it's kind of the current plan. The employee is out $1,500, and then they're out about 20 to 25%, up to probably about $17,000 if my numbers are right. And then the insurance company's taking that risk up on the other 80%,
And
up
see,
to $17,000. And where this new policy, it just shifts the risk a little bit to the city, but they've run their data to show that not a whole lot of people will blow past the $1,500 mark. So statistically, the city has a savings there if it takes the risk from $1,500 up to $5,000. And so the benefit to the employee is that the employee is just out of pocket $1,500. And once the employee pays the $1,500, it doesn't have the copay after that. So the employee doesn't have a max out of pocket of $5,000. The employee just has a max out of pocket of $1,500. So there's a potential savings of $3,500 for the employee.
but that's not how it was explained during our meeting with him on the other day when we had the city meeting. And so that's where the concern
The meeting with Brian?
Mhm. With the people who were on our Zoom call. So that's when I was saying that, like he explained, if there's multiple catastrophics or whatever, that creates a problem, because then there's not a pool of money that's sitting there. And so that I think was kind of the biggest concern, so kind of how you just broke it down makes more sense to me, numbers wise. But I think that's where a lot of the concern came in, cause like I even went to the back and I was like, crap, if I have to get one leg, like that's it, like, that's a lot of money.
Yeah, and as I understand that, whether it's the current policy or the new policy, that's the same. It's just the matter between, over $1,500, who's taking that risk? The city's taking the risk up to $5,000, whereas the current plan, the employee and the insurance company are sharing the risk up to about $17,000. thousand, and then the insurance company takes it over 17,000 every year. And under the new one, the employee takes the first 1,500, the city takes the next 3,500, and the insurance company takes it after that.
So nothing extra for the employee out of pocket.
As I understand it, for the single plan, it's 1,500, for the employee spouse, employee family is 3,000 max. Whereas the current one is, the max out of pocket for the employee is 5,000, and then 10,000 for the family plan.
Yeah, kind of was moving here the other day, so kind of help break that down a little bit, like I said, that's not how it was explained to us.
And I did ask, person that does a lot of insurance, HR, and also asked the person who does kind of the insurance, similar to Brian, but he understands the industry extremely well, this is what he does, so I asked two people, and I got the same answer from them, as far as looking at these numbers.
And I think that that's why people are frustrated about it right now, it's because of that.
Mhm.
You know, because there's a lot of, okay, well, what if? And change, and anything with change, let's be real, none of us really like a whole lot of change. But that was a very big concern with everybody.
And this is a similar system, I think a lot of cities and counties and businesses are shifting to, because it just makes more economical sense, because the insurance company, they're running their numbers and that, they're absorbing a certain amount of risk, whereas the city, if we absorb a little bit of that risk, right, we can take some of that buffer that the insurance company builds into their policies, and that's where there's the potential savings for the city. And Brian, I believe, is correct, if I'm understanding what he's saying, is that if there are many catastrophics, then that absorbs some of the potential savings. But he ran the numbers on us, and, with different utilization, how many employees would go over the 1,500, and you look at national averages, and we even kind of erred on the, not so safe side, and the city still is looking at potential savings of somewhere around $40,000 a year. So that's my understanding of it. And I think I'm correct that there is a savings for the employee as far as reducing their max out of pocket, and then statistically there's a savings for the city as well.
And that tracks with what I understood from the last meeting, but it might be helpful, it's a very important question.
It is.
If we could lay out some very specific scenarios.
We asked for that, actually, Chief said ask for that during this meeting, and he said he would email them over to him right away. We did not receive those emails with the scenarios on them.
But, I just would say, it would be nice to know, lay out your specific concern, for example. And if there are other people that have very specific concerns, what will the actual out-of-pocket cost be for this person in this scenario? But I just, unless we were told something that's completely inaccurate last time, because it was my real focal point is, are we giving up coverage for our employees? And the answer is no. It's just a question, I think, as Francis says, redistributing the risk, the statistical risk. And I just want to make one other point about the premiums going up. Now that has nothing to do with the
Yeah,
change.
no,
That's
it's
a
across the
30%
board.
increase that's not
No,
because
no,
of the shift.
and I get that, and that's everywhere, that's with anything.
Yeah, I would just want to make sure that you let your people know that there's no way to avoid raising the premiums. We were at a 30% increase regardless of what we did.
No, and they understand that, like I said, I think it was just coverage, because a lot of these guys have families and
Sure.
things like that, and we're on medicines or who whatever. Like I said, I've just been through a lot of that with insurances. So, those were the concerns that were brought up to me. So, thank you guys.
If I can add something, just as background, so I'm specifically an ESOP lawyer, and so ESOP is a subset of a federal body of law known as ERISA, the Employee Retirement Income Security Act, and that law governs health and welfare plans. And so, in my life, I spend 10-15% of my work diligencing health and welfare plans for businesses that are being purchased. And all that to say is that I think your understanding of what was discussed is accurate. So what's going on is, instead of having your current plan, which has a lower, call it deductible, you're moving to a higher deductible plan, and you're sticking an HRA in the middle, So that from your perspective, it looks the same, you're using the two cards, one to pay with money from the HRA, one for money to pay once you actually hit your deductible, with us counting on savings from those folks that don't use up all of the cash that goes into their HRA. So I think you guys would be in the best position to know, like, how many of you, actually do hit your deductibles. That's where we would come up with the utilization rates to see how realistic, the savings are. I mean, I'm a little skeptical there, just because I feel when someone is trying to sell you on savings, usually either they're counting on you guys not using the HRA or they're gonna be denying some claims. But assuming the latter is not the case, and it's truly just you guys not utilizing, items, it might be a worthwhile, experiment to run. But that's just my understanding as well, based on experience.
Yeah, well, thank you. And I am confident as well that one of the advantages of doing this, trying this out this year, is we can go back to the previous plan. We could drop the third party.
I don't think we can.
No, I think we can,
I think we said if we leave this, we can't get.
but we're
back
not
in.
leaving the Blue Cross Blue Shield.
No, but the particular plan, so when we left the grandfather status, we couldn't get back to that, because that was, and then we,
That was one of the questions I asked him.
We're keeping the same network, we're not keeping the same plan. So we're keeping the Blue Cross Blue Shield network, we're not keeping the deductible plan. I don't know if we lose it or not, that might be a question to ask him.
that's what he had said.
Okay.
What we're in now, at one point, if we were poor performers and we were using a lot of it, they could have kicked us out. But the rules changed, so they couldn't do that. But I seem to recall Brian saying in the room when we met that one day that if you leave this, you can't get back in this. And there could be some nuance on misunderstanding, but that's what I believe he said.
Just to, I think very few people, once they go to this model,
Wanna leave it?
want to leave it.
Yeah.
And then here's just some numbers, looking at, if nobody went past their $1,500, right, not gonna happen, but let's just say ideal. Then the city saves essentially $100,000, $99,793. Okay, the TASC average, not sure what that means, is 16% utilization. So I understand that 16% of people will go past their $1,500 and get past the $5,000 max. The city's taking that additional $3,500 risk. So the employee takes the first $1,500, city takes the next $3,500, and then the max out for employed city combined is $5,000. So the national average, according to Brian, is 20%. If we just stick with the national average, the city will save about $51,000. But the numbers that I referenced, he ran the numbers if we did 30%. So it's at 50% higher than the national average, probably saving. Even at that point, we're saving $41,800. And so even if we went up to 50% utilization, we're still saving, probably, numbers real quick, but it's still about $30,000. So we could blow past national averages by a long shot and still save. It would take us getting up to probably about the 85 percentile utilization in order to not save any money. So we're going to an extreme of an extreme of an extreme, which isn't gonna happen, in order to put ourselves at risk. Our total risk is $115,500. Okay, so we're looking at potential max savings in an ideal world of 100,000. The other extreme worst absolute case scenario is we are at risk of 115,500. But the reality is, we could be one of the worst examples out there and we'll still save $30,000-$40,000 a year. So I think we're very prudent and very safe as far as estimating some savings with going this route. Yeah, that kind of leads into the next conversation that we'll do today.
Wow, well, Nathan.
Right on time.
Yeah, 0825 coming up.
responded to Sid's email, and,
But I would like to,
well, she called today and asked if I needed any more information from him. I thought since you talked to Sarah, that you maybe got your answers from her. So I didn't press him today for I thought
That's
it wasn't relevant, but I will.
That's all right, I think, I was mainly just confirming that I was looking at the data correctly, which I checked with 2 other people now.
Yeah, I think we're aligned on this being a worthwhile risk, it's just confirmed that her concerns are like not, that they're taken care of.
which leads to the follow-on question that Francis was, putting forward about given the, reasonable expectation there will be some savings, could we consider changing the percent that the, city covers for the monthly costs? And if you wanna speak to that, Francis, or just, if we have a data sheet here too, go ahead.
Alright, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Okay, so each year, Commissioner might discuss it at the next city commission meeting, but we discuss raises to salaries and staff, paid city staff. And, where cost of living goes up each year. With the employee paying a certain percentage of the premium, I think it's 16% of the premium, and our premium going up 30%. A lot of the increase in salary, and I haven't run the specific numbers on this, but the increase in salaries will be eaten up by the increase that they will have to contribute to the premium. And so, at the end of the day, it's a net, probably not much, if any, increase in salary. And so, do we want to address that? And if the answer is yes, then, how can we address it? I think there's a couple different ways. One, we can increase salaries more to account for the increased costs of the premium as well as increased cost of living. Or we can consider the city paying a higher percentage of the premium in order for the city to absorb that increase in premium. I think that may be a better route because not every employee is on the health insurance policy. And so it's just the ones that are on the health insurance policy that are kind of feeling that impact of the increase in premium. So I asked Maurice, maybe had Brian run these numbers on what the cost would look like, just changing the percent of the premium that the employee would pay. So I think there's a couple different scenarios. One is, once again, we're at 84.16 right now. So one scenario is kind of a 90-10. And if I'm understanding correctly, the city is looking at the full premium, city and employee, of $535,000 per year. And I think currently, correct me if I'm wrong on this, the 16% of that is around 85,000 and change, right around there.
Yeah, for some reason it didn't include that number.
Yeah, so
We included the 2025 number, but it looks like, yeah, it would be about
85,000.
85,000.
And then if we looked at the just dropping that, if we did 90-10, so I should have these prepared. I think
You actually did that summary data. I don't know if you see that.
where
summary
is
data.
that? It's the
It says
employees.
renewal with BCBS and
Yeah,
Freedom
there we go.
Claims employees paying 10%. The summary data are on the bottom.
It's 53,500.
Yeah.
So it's a reduction in cost to the employee of about, if my number's right, around $32,000 a year. And obviously if we go down to a 100-0, then that's a full reduction of the $86,000 a year to the employee.
There'd be more cost than that because we would probably get some of the employees that aren't on the plan suddenly on it and at the maximum level. which isn't a bad thing, I just, that needs to be calculated in, that they have different plans to their spouse, and then if this is the cheapest option, they'll come back. So we'll have to, you know, do the math calculation and then do that, so.
Yeah, that's a consideration that I remember coming up last couple of years when we had this discussion.
Yeah, well, one person left because of the increase last year, and that sort of stuff, and then if it's 100-0, let's switch back, which is acceptable, I just want you to be calculating that in there.
So something to consider, I think, I didn't really ask for, this to be added to the agenda to act on it tonight, but I think take a look at the numbers, and then maybe at the next city commission meeting, we might have a discussion on city pay, and this would be part of that discussion more likely.
Yes, some thoughts on that. Thank you for bringing that up. I think it is important because we need our city employees to keep the city running. I generally would be more in favor of like a one-time special premium raise. I think, like you said, we could, as far as the raises go. And I know that might be all around the board, but I have just a couple of considerations as to why maybe I would favor that approach that we can think about for the next 2 weeks if we do wanna discuss this next. I mean, one, this is predicated on us getting these cost savings. You mentioned that even in a really bad scenario, we're still coming up 30 grand ahead. So that may be true, and so maybe this is one of the weaker arguments, but I'm still a little skeptical when someone comes in and says, look, you were in a level funded plan before, through which we were supposed to be getting refunds to the extent we come under what we estimated for claims. Here they're telling us we're gonna be 50% under claims and we're gonna get 30 grand back. Again, it depends on who's utilizing it and the loss ratios are different, but I'm still like, as long as it doesn't mean that there are 9 claims for some of our folks. So in any case, that might be one of the weaker arguments. The second one is, I do understand we can go to 100 and then maybe tone it back in the event that it becomes too expensive for the city. I don't know, that's more of a feeling one, right? Like, how would we dangle a carrot in front of someone, if we give them 100% paid, and now we're actually gonna tone it back to 84, would that allow them then to seek separate coverage if all of a sudden that becomes too expensive for them in the middle of the year? I don't know the answer to that question. The third point is what Mr. Maurice mentioned here is like, what behavior does it incentivize? Does it incentivize folks then to join into the family plan if you can get, 100% covered by your employer? Does it incentivize folks who are currently not on there to jump onto your plan? How does that account for our estimates here? And then the last point to consider is the equitableness of this, right? If you're an individual on a family plan, you're effectively getting a $3,600 raise. That is a bigger raise than if you're an individual getting a $86 a month raise, right? Because now you're getting 100%. Again, it's just something to consider. And maybe we do want to support our families more than others, but it's equitable across the board. So I do understand, maybe we give an extra 50-cent raise or 75-cent raise in order to account for the 30% raise in premium. But I'm a little hesitant to offer 100, but what if next year, insurance goes up another 25%? And now you're giving them another 25% raise on that. You can get unwieldy, but just things to consider.
Anything, Earl?
My understanding is that there are significant tax advantages to increasing the employer contribution as opposed to giving a raise.
I don't know about
And it'll be FICA on the health insurance, is what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it's not a taxable benefit, so that would be, where payroll is taxable. I'm not sure how that works out math-wise, but.
I mean, if you're contributing 100%, that contribution would be tax-free, as opposed to what you're saying is you'll get taxed on that 50-cent extra raise that we suggest we give you. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
That's a consideration.
I think that one thing I'd be interested to see is, what would the percent contribution be for us to be able to keep their premiums exactly where they are? Or to have only a slight increase. I think there are other ways we can do it. It's not as though you have to do you could go to any percentage, right? It could be
We can now that we're out of the grandfather clause, yes.
that's another thing to consider,
Yeah.
is just sort of, dial it in, I would be hesitant, just at first blush, I would be hesitant to go straight to paying 100%, both because of the unintended consequences part, but also, let's see if we have any savings, before we, and it is interesting to me, I have to understand these numbers better, that for a, it seems like it should be, if it goes down X over here, it should go up X over there, but it goes up more than X over. I have to look at these numbers and understand how much this is gonna cost the city relative to the employee. But I like the idea. I think that the benefit is one of the best things we can do to retain, quality workers. So, I think maybe we figured out more what these numbers mean and talk about it again, leave it on the agenda. Or did you wanna make another comment?
Okay.
Just carry it over. Next item on the agenda is the St. Mary's Historical Society contract, which is an annual renewal, and there have been no changes, correct?
Except for the dates.
Is there anything you wanna comment on?
Nope. Matter of fact,
Yeah, because we, in that building over there. So, we need a motion to renew the St. Mary's Historical contract as presented. So unless there are any questions, I would accept a motion to approve the St. Mary's Historical Society contract as presented.
Mr. I move we accept the historical document, what do you call it? Society contract as presented.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
I'll say.
I have a motion and a second, all those in favor vote aye.
Aye.
There are none opposed. Speaking of which, now we have
now
something
is
to
the
be
motion to
thankful
make,
for.
the next one, you make a motion, it's on the agenda. It's the resolution thanking you for your time.
The next item on the agenda would be, this is a resolution 0825 thanking a certain Nathan Hall for his service on the commission.
Over 4 years.
Could I, for over 4 years, could I would entertain a motion to approve resolution 0825 thanking Mr. Hall in that way.
I would like to make a motion to approve the resolution to thank Nate Hall for his service.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
I'll say.
I have a motion and a second, all those in favor vote aye.
Aye.
And there are none opposed. Thank you
Frank, that's it.
for your, oh wait, that's not on the agenda, well, maybe that could be.
We added that to
before.
the agenda.
We can add it to the,
No, it was at the beginning of the meeting.
no, it's speech.
Oh, we speak.
Oh.
Do that with reports.
We'll do that in the reports. Give you time to think of that. All right, the next item on the agenda, long-term planning discussion. The next two are Francis's item. Go ahead.
Okay, just a quick discussion, at the next meeting, I'll add this to the agenda in advance and try to bring a couple ideas, more templates for a long-term plan for the various departments in the city. And, it's something that I think will take several meetings to maybe reach an agreement on, but hopefully we can get there, just to develop a template that everybody's comfortable with for the various departments in the city on refining the 10-year plan. Something that we've had several different templates over the years, but I think it's something that as a group and as a city, we need to have working off the same template. And so I do plan to add that to the next agenda meeting. So I'd like to bring it up, just so not surprising anybody, you're aware that it's coming, but that's it.
Which is, just a little more context, we scheduled a series of work sessions like the one we had tonight, with the departments. We have an annual review when we're talking about budget. I really like the idea of combining those sorts of things together, so we have a constant drumbeat of, not just what is your projected you're projecting costs for next year based upon last year's numbers, but, let's really get a direct report from the department heads on strategic initiatives. That's why we wanted the meetings, and it's like, so what are your priorities? What's the same thing we're doing with the rec board, basically, in all the departments. So I think it's a great idea, personally. The next item on the agenda, is a quarterly newsletter. That was Francis's idea as well.
Mr. Mayor, it's another item I'll add to the agenda, just kind of open up the discussion from the commission, see if it's something that the commission's staff's interested in. Sort of maybe a quarterly, maybe more frequent, maybe less frequent, I don't know, whatever seems to make sense. And an update, so people know what's actually really going on the city commission and the city departments. I think it's important, obviously, just keep the communication up. I think it's also important so that people know, the reality and the facts. In modern times, just I guess throughout all of history, there's a lot of different people with different opinions that come up, and there's a term called fake news. It's like that's not what's going on, but a lot of times people, they just don't know, and so they listen to about everybody, and sometimes it may not be super accurate. So I think if the city kind of puts out a quarterly newsletter, I think it helps with communication. I actually got to see a newsletter from another city in the area, and they did an annual, and I know it was very well received. And I think we can keep it simple, we'll come up with a format that's not gonna be a tremendous amount of work each quarter to update. What is that format? I don't know. What's the content? I don't know, but I think it's something that as a group we can work through and see if we can come with an idea that we're comfortable with and include with utility bills and the emails or however that may go. So that's it, and I'll just add it to the next agenda. Happy to answer questions.
I think Raphael was volunteering to write primarily for I'll edit it for you. And if we had a long-term plan, it seems to me that might be a good way to just sort of keep people updated on where we are. And then the last item is Raphael's questions about city attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this is a question for Mr. Cordell. And I guess specifically, is the city attorney on a per hour basis with us, or is he salaried? Like, can we ask him whatever we want?
Per hour.
He's on per hour, okay.
Yeah, if you wanna speak with him, one-on-one, he's open to that, we can get you the phone number or the email, and that's for stuff. So normally when, a commissioner calls the city attorney lets me know, doesn't just tell me any of the details of the conversation, so that city commissioner contact me about this, and just want you to be aware of it, and so those no details. So it is confidential, and you're welcome to, he might, so there's court in this room on Thursday, and it starts at 1, sometimes we meet with him before that on other city stuff, and sometimes after court. So if you wanna meet him in person, he should be here this Thursday at 1, and if you have questions specifically for him, he'd be glad to meet with you.
Okay, so I'm just gonna add some context before you guys will be alright, what
Please
is this
do.
guy doing? No, I thought it'd be helpful, having not done this, is like, what can we do, what can't we do? And I know you sent that Belmar, goal or whatever they're called.
I have the governing body handbook here that gives you rules or suggestions from the league. Chuck had got it when he went to a meeting, and he finally gave it to me as he was leaving, so, it's a pretty helpful book. I was gonna pass it around after the meeting, and we can order each one. I wouldn't photocopy it legally or anything, but I would order a separate one,
Please
for
do.
one.
Yeah, I think we have the consensus on the
I don't know,
agenda.
$80 or $100, I'll pass it around, I should have given it already.
You don't get it.
There's good information in there.
I think that gets to what I was doing, like, what do we need a motion for, what do we need, a public meeting for?
Well, if you're gonna do any discussion with 3 or more of you, that's a public meeting,
Yeah, you gotta get it.
right? It could be a work session, it could be a regular meeting, a motion, so that some of that just comes down to how you wanna handle it. You can authorize the street superintendent to go out and buy something not to exceed a certain amount, and not have a motion, just have a consensus. And the reason is, when he does it, it's gonna come back to the appropriations and you can approve it. If you have a contract for work to be done for $1,500 and it's sitting in front of you, I suggest you make a motion on that. We enter it in the minutes, so when the auditor sees it, he knows it, and that sort of stuff. So, some of it is just, personal preference, but if you have an actual dollar amount that you're gonna approve, that should be a motion. Or if you're gonna take formal action, it's a motion. If it's just to give us direction to do stuff, like, we want us to, I don't wanna buy those books, there was a consensus. And consensus means there's no objection. If there's objection, then you can ask for a motion and vote on it. But generally, unless there's a dollar amount or something specific, consensus works.
And ultimately where I was going with this is like, would it ever make sense if, let's say we did have a plan, and I know you said things move slowly, like, is it an option where we hold public meetings that are purely electronic?
Or
Where,
for the Zoom.
yeah, through a Zoom, or something that makes it more easy for us to meet more regularly in order to progress maybe a little bit quicker on things that we have. So that's just kind of where I was going with this, like, is that even possible? Can we meet through Zoom?
Well, they did during the pandemic, not here, but other places. So I looked into it, so basic plan is free, but that limits you to 40 minutes. If you want 40 hours a month and have 100 participants, it's like $13 a month, pay it all at once, and then if you have up to 500, there's another $250. So and we can use our existing webcams, but if you're talking about remotely having a meeting,
Yeah.
it's been done, I don't know how practical it is.
Bradville's presuming there would be interest in doing that.
Well, if you-
Right, so
Well, I looked at
that's the point of the discussion, like, if you guys would be interested in, look, we have consensus on wanting to do something, it's like, right, let's get it done. Maybe meeting more often than twice a month would be beneficial to getting it done.
Did you have a comment?
Just not to say that things are always gonna be the same, but just over the last 13 years, minus a year in the commission, I think there were 2 times, I can't recall the second, there might have been a second, but I know of one time where kind of the need arose to have a special meeting to hit a specific topic that was very time sensitive. And so the mayor can call a special meeting, maybe 3 times, but the mayor can call a special meeting, or I think it could be the majority of the board can also request a meeting, and we just have to make it public, the time and the topic. So on our regular meetings, we can add items to the agenda and all that good stuff. But for a special meeting, it just has to be very clear. It's a set time and the topic has to be very clear ahead of time and we can't add to the agenda.
Okay.
But I think twice a month doesn't sound like much, but boy, those 2 weeks are gonna fly.
I presume sign off, right, that's a big assumption, but it's still, like, if that's a tool that we have,
Yeah.
maybe we can, take advantage of it.
Do you wanna ask any questions about the lawyer? No.
Do you wanna meet with him or
Okay.
get his contact information?
At one, like, those middle of the day meetings are tough.
No, I understand that, but, he does have a telephone number and email, you can set up some time if that's what you want to, but you don't have to, I thought maybe that's where you're going, but you're going with,
Well, I think the handbook, like, this might be the,
well, you go ahead and take that and, I can.
Yeah, could you order more copies of it?
I certainly may, will. Consensus on that?
Yeah.
I always have old lawyers as well.
All right, that concludes the agenda. Any reports, Maureen?
So, the bond, project, the BG Consultants, Pat Cox called today, and they're working with the low bidder to get the paperwork in order to make it happen. The bond attorney asked them for a specific number, and so I told them to go ahead and do the $392,020, and that the city would probably pay the $48,000 as we went, and not put that in the bond.
Okay,
that,
well, that was my other question. We were supposed to see some particulars on that.
Well, so I signed the notice of award. The next thing to sign is the notice to proceed. they don't wanna do it till the spring.
No, I mean about the extension of the contract with BG.
Well, he didn't have it ready.
Okay.
He said that, but I gave him the update that we're moving forward on that. And the only question I can't answer, and I know you all are asking, is what about that $75,000 buffer? If they don't spend that, how does that get affected? I'll get you an answer for it, I don't have it. So Pat Cox should have it by the next meeting, their thing like that, so. We still haven't got the power outages scheduled for the bridge project and the substation. Don thinks it's still a couple weeks, props anyway. And then, we mentioned work sessions, so at 6 o'clock before the next meeting is the, street and refuse work session. Do you have any specific, we moved it, remember got canceled and then we moved it to the 16th. So if you have any specific questions, Bob has some information gathered about the cost of asphalt or aggregate, that sort of stuff, and, you can just send me an email and let me know. And, Bob, do you have any report?
Oh, no, no.
Okay. That's all I have, and we had a meeting with the software provider today. So your way.
Were you happy with it?
I mean, it was just a quick touch point meeting, just checking in and stuff, so.
Nate, are you sure you don't wanna say anything?
I wanna thank the staff, Don, Maurice, Kelsey, everyone, it's been, Don, Bob,
Yeah.
and, mostly Bob, actually. No, it's been an honor to serve and, a great experience, and wishing the city and the rest of the board, all the luck in the future. And,
Keep in mind, there's no vacancies now on the planning commission, but 3 of those boards are from outside the city, 3 of those members are extraterritorial, we'll keep you in mind.
yeah, I'll think about that. Maybe. No, but sincerely, thank you.
All right, now we come to the saddest time of the night. Oh, yes, good point. There is the employee appreciation Christmas dinner on Sunday at time, 6
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock at the Army.
And the meal of choice apparently is gyros. Yeah, see, you're pronouncing how I do wrong, I guess.
Don't say that.
But from downtown here, from Goodland, Steve is.
I try less.
All right, now we're at the saddest time of the night, where I entertain a motion to adjourn, if anyone's so inclined.
Sorry, I moved to adjourn.
I have a motion, do I have a second?